And the cool thing about what we're building is because we're isolating content creators as our customer, ideally in a certain point, we'll have enough of these and a case study to look at where we can sort of model out what their profit and loss statement should be. If they're doing that amount of revenue, this is typically what we're seeing other creators making off that amount of revenue, what their balance sheets look like, where they're potentially getting financing from or where they're doing other deals. So that cross-pollination, sourced privately and independently, will be helpful to each of those businesses, I think, going forward with the knowledge we're trying to build.
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. If you haven't stopped by the Profit Comes First website, go check it out. Our new giveaway is there. It is the Profit Blueprint book. You can get it for free. It explains simple, easy ways to implement Profit First. And then everything else that we do for our clients, we share how you can do it yourself if that's what you want to do. Check it out at the website. Today, we've got my good friend PT on. We met at FinCon way back in the day. That's a conference that he runs for financial content creators. I used to spend a lot of time on the personal finance side before, but now we are strictly business finance. On my other podcast, Richer Soul, we occasionally will cover some of the personal finance stuff. These days I've kind of moved on. I know a ton of people on that side and have been on a lot of the big shows that are out there. But today, we're going to talk about all his businesses, how he stacks them together to offer various products to his audience, and how he brings them all together. Philip Taylor is a CPA, writer, podcaster, entrepreneur, and founder of FinCon. He also owns TravelCon and runs the Creator CPA, a CPA firm specializing in accounting services for content creators. PT's been quoted and featured in multiple media outlets, including the New York Times, Washington Post, Forbes, Fox Business, and more. Let's meet PT and see how he does it all. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, PT. It's great to have you join us today.
Great to be here, Rocky.
Can you share a little bit about all your businesses?
Sure, man. I'm a CPA, classically trained in accounting. Worked in that industry a little while, but found digital marketing and started a blog back in 2007 at ptmoney.com. And so that's been my primary business, our longest running business through the years is a blog that covers personal finance, investing, side hustling, real estate, just a variety of topics that have been interesting to me through the years. Because I did that project, another business opportunity came to me, which was to host a conference for folks who did that. So digital creators who are in the personal finance space come to my event every year. It's FinCon. We have about 1,500 of those creators come together, and we meet once a year and do a big 4-day trade show and conference. It's a great time. So that's business number 2. Business number 3 is an additional creator conference called TravelCon. And we acquired that a year and a half ago now from another creator in the space who had ran it for a while and then shut it down. So we have sort of a spring show now and a fall show. So spring for TravelCon, fall for FinCon. And then my last business is probably the most involved now, which is the family CPA firm that I took over about a year ago. And so it's a 6-person team, mostly based in Missouri, and we do about 600 clients, both individual and business, worth of tax and bookkeeping services, monthly services. And so I have 3 kids, live in Texas. So that's kind of a job too, with my lovely wife. And I get to work on all those projects, which is great. So that's kind of what I'm into these days.
I'm guessing each of those businesses behaves very differently.
Yeah, they do. They really do. They serve initially. I would say they served somewhat different clients, but through the years and most recently, I've tried to integrate them as much as possible so that they are serving similar clients, and there's sort of a cross promotion going on with them, which is great. But yeah, I mean, events are very different than a simple blog, and certainly the services industry is a lot different as well. So yeah, happy to dig into each of them and maybe how they work together now, or I'm trying to get them to work together. But yeah, they're different beasts. And part of that is me just sort of, loving to learn new businesses, new ways of doing things, and these new challenges and ideas coming to me and saying, heck yeah, let's just go do it. Let's go try to do it,
How has the world of blogging changed? I mean, AI has come out, Perplexity's out. A lot of people aren't even, before Google would direct you somewhere. Today, a lot of people just get their answer directly from Google's AI. They don't even end up on somebody's website. And so there's been a dramatic shift in that space. What have you seen?
Yeah, through the years, there's definitely been some shifts. Back when I started, we were creating content on our blogs, and that was social media at the same time. So people needed to go somewhere to have a conversation about a topic, and they were coming to our blogs to have that conversation. So yes, they were searching for answers, coming to our blogs and finding community and social, and then doing that all there in one shop, right? And then you could oftentimes convert those people over into a customer, or, do something else with that community. Social came on and sort of took the social away from the blog arena. So people started having conversations on Facebook and Twitter and these other outposts, right? And so bloggers, in a way, sort of lost their community that was happening in their conversation. Some blogs survived that because they had really good, solid communities that really wanted their own space and didn't mind continuing to comment and go directly to the blog. But as the algorithms got better, apps got better, feeds got better, people just got stuck in the apps, right? And so the only time they were going to blogs after probably 2015, 2016 was when they were doing a Google search, right, for something. And so for a while, that independent media, independent bloggers sort of survived in that space where they just continued to answer people's questions, and Google would serve them up, alongside bigger notable brands as well. Somewhere around 2017, 2018, Google sort of needed to, I don't know the reasonings behind it, but they basically just chose bigger media outlets, brands on the street, the Forbes of the world, the Wall Street Journals, the New York Times. They sort of got into the business that we were doing, and they've slowly pushed kind of us out of that space. And so Google has certainly chosen the winners, with the results they're giving, and independent media, independent bloggers aren't necessarily that as much anymore, with the exception of a few pockets here and there. And certainly some blogs have raised their profile enough to where they can still wield enough sort of power with Google. NerdWallet comes, for instance, in the finance space. They started as a simple blog, but did such a good job of raising their brand up and becoming sort of a Main Street name that they've sort of stuck around.
And so how have you adapted to that? Because it's, again, I think the key here is community.
Yep.
But if you don't, for lack of a better word, own the community, then it becomes difficult. Now on Facebook, you can have a group and you do have some control, but at any moment, they can kick you out. They can close your group. They can do all kinds of stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So through the years, I've done a few different things to kind of take more control of that. But to be honest with you, I got busy with FinCon. And so that became my community and my main business. And so that's mostly where I took my energy to. But we did see a lot of creators turn to other mediums where there's still opportunity, right? In podcasting, for instance, it's not really a crowded space, even still to today, in my opinion. YouTube is still sort of an open platform where independent creators can really make hay and get searched, right? You can still go there and the bigger brands aren't kind of crowding the space yet. Social media in and of itself, a lot of creators have just turned to that, and that's really where they hang their hat and they're using their content to drive their business. So it can be done. It's just less likely to be owned entirely by you, right? Emails, subscription newsletters in some ways have replaced blogs for a lot of people. We've seen that move as well. Some people are like, I'm just going to keep blogging, but I'm going to do it all through email. We can control my email list. We could try to become the Morning Brew or one of these hustles or one of these other sort of newsletters, and sort of my blog will go to them, so to speak, versus them coming to me. So there's different ways that people have kind of taken back that power and taken control of their content and still stayed relevant and stayed in places where they're able to continue to get attention for their content and ultimately their business.
And I think the key is you have to constantly pivot because the world keeps changing and it seems to be changing faster and faster.
Yep.
And so you've got to have that ability. I'm almost thinking, and we haven't seen it yet, but the thought process is in the world of AI and big brands, the individual quirky creator is going to come back because you can make a connection. It's not sterile, and depending on how trustworthy they are.
Yeah.
If they can build trust, then I think it's changing in that realm. Have you noticed anything, or is there talk of what's next?
Certainly, it's platform by platform and individual by individual. Yep. I think if the talent is there and you're ultimately helping people with your message, if you've got a medium to get that out, it will resonate with people and connect with people, like you said, versus just sort of this mass deluge of information, which may or may not be, AI driven or corporate driven. So yeah, I think there's pathways for the individual. If I didn't think that, I'd have sold FinCon a couple of years ago, probably. But I believe in the individual creator, that they'll find a way, to reach an audience, and that humans crave other humans in terms of wanting their opinions, wanting their perspective, wanting to get to know them. I think it's happening most visibly on YouTube. That's where you're seeing it today, where the individual quirky creator, as you called it, is really still able to kind of make a connection and grow audiences really fast. It's cool to see.
Do you think Main Street businesses can also play in that space and drive traffic to their businesses?
Absolutely. Yeah. Several different ways you could go about it. If the owner, founder, or someone on the team is, comfortable in that environment, has a little maybe extra personality or charisma that could translate over into the camera, then go for it. Put your content out there and see what happens with it. I mean, some of the most successful Main Street or, in-person businesses have a founder who can connect online, right? It's the old school, get on your local TV station and be the expert in XYZ. And then you have the business that sort of sits behind it, right? So we no longer need those mediums. We no longer need the 5 o'clock news to kind of help us create a platform. We can go out and do that for ourselves. So yeah, if you're bent that way, most certainly lean into it. And I would argue that most people probably listening to your podcast have somewhat of a bent that way already. They're attracted to this medium. They like listening to it. So there's not much of a leap to say from where they're at to then, start doing it themselves. I've also seen folks who sort of borrow that talent or borrow that connection with an attention getter through an affiliate program or through some kind of direct partnership or relationship. You're seeing a lot of businesses now bring in a founder, partner, creator who sort of can be the attention getter for the business, and while the business owner sort of stays in that position. I'm thinking about doing that actually with FinCon. I've gotten to a point to where I don't want to necessarily do as much content. And so to me, it makes sense to maybe bring in someone younger, more energetic, who can maybe, focus on getting attention for us. That's all it's about. It's just about, can you dip into the attention stream and then, siphon off some of that for your business. And by all means, yeah, I think any business has that opportunity right now for sure.
Do people still watch the 5 o'clock news?
Probably funny clips, bloopers on YouTube occasionally.
I
Good
didn't
point.
think.
Yeah.
We don't have cable, so I have no idea what people watch. I figure it's a much older crowd at this point that's still stuck to that. So you've had FinCon for over 10 years now.
Yep.
And honestly, because I've noticed what's happened, COVID really caused massive disruption, both with travel, hotels, hotel costs, everything. How have you been able to navigate all those changes?
Well, luckily we had a 10-year run before that. So that was actually our COVID year was what would have been our 10th year. So we're in year 15 now, which is awesome. Great community to serve, great business to run, great team that helps me produce it. We got lean early on, and we built a good runway for ourselves so that, if and when something did happen, we kind of had a war chest built to a degree. Since that point, we've sort of been floundering and not growing at the rate we were growing pre-COVID. And that is still somewhat of a mystery to me as to why that's happening. I know post-COVID, a lot of more people came into our space and are trying to do what we're doing. Certainly that had an effect. I think people's behaviors have changed about events and the importance of them. I think our community, the community of creators that we sort of fostered, have graduated to a degree, to a next level. And then I think brands are still less likely to invest in events as they were in the past. And so combination of those things have kind of left me wondering, what's the secret here? What do I need to kind of figure out next? Is it smaller events? Just do more of them? Is it try to scale again in terms of, really trying to reduce the entry point to our event and then get the numbers up so that then we can maybe leverage that? A lot of different questions I have about it, but we've survived because, I've prepared financially. I have a great team who stuck with me, and we've just kind of scrapped around and figured out how to do it.
And I think that is the importance of a war chest. And people just don't get that concept. Having a large amount of cash is not a bad thing. You don't have to invest every penny. You can hold on to it so that when something goes wrong, you are stable enough to survive, because it is during downtimes that market share grows. And that's what I don't think people realize. It's when everyone else fails, if you're still standing, you get the business.
Yep.
And so from that standpoint, I think it's big. I will say what I'm noticing in the past year, people want to be back in person. People don't want to be on Zoom calls.
Right.
They want to press the flesh and get to meet people and do stuff. But the other half of that is, because I know I go to a lot of conferences, and we just looked at all our spending for last year, and it's not the ticket. It is the airline flights were ridiculous last year, hotel costs, food, all of that stuff adds up dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's all of those things.
Yeah, it's one of the only businesses where your customer spends 3 times the amount as they do with you to enjoy your product, right? So to make use of our product, they have to spend 3 times that amount. That's not hitting my pocket. Yeah.
It's higher than that.
Right.
I know your number. I mean, I know what you sell tickets for. I know what the hotel room and airfare costs. I mean, if you're driving, it's one thing.
Sure.
And you're local, but if you've got to come in, it's a massive multiple on that side. So you've worked with a lot of creators. I've always said creators and money are like oil and water. They don't mix well. What have you seen?
I came up with a lot of personal finance creators. And so they were the guys and gals who kind of understood what to do and knew their stuff. But they're also entrepreneurs who want to be out selling, want to be out developing the business. And so, oftentimes creators are just itching to sort of go do that, and oftentimes might neglect kind of what's going on with their business. Once they maybe make the transition to full-time creator, may neglect things like, saving for their own retirement, or, setting up their, sort of financial system as a business, efficiently. And they started small business owners. And so it's kind of hard to know what those first few steps are, that we see. But yeah, it's great to be able to serve them through our events and to have been one of them through the years. And then now with the creator CPA firm that my dad sold to me last year, we're able to serve some of those clients with their actual books, taxes, and accounting. So I'm trying to integrate this environment where we can serve these creators from a lot of different angles. But yeah, they're, especially outside of the finance space, a lot of them, they need an advisor, and in the general sense, someone to really help them kind of think about the business and take some of the unknowns, the compliance, sort of take that off their hands and let them get back to doing what is growing their business, which is making another video or making another podcast or TikTok or whatever it is. At least for a few more days, TikTok.
Oh, I don't think is someone just going to buy it or?
Yeah.
It's amazing how these things all happen. And it's surprising that TikTok survived in the sense that so many of these things have popped up and disappeared. Like you would see them and everyone's like, oh, you got to be here. You got to be here. And everyone runs to this new platform. Yeah. And 2 months later, it's all dead. I don't think, is anyone on Clubhouse anymore?
Yeah, not me. You're right. TikTok has innovated. They really have. They've stayed on the front of it and they've been nice to the creator. They've paved ways for them to make more money, to get their content, to places where most platforms couldn't even touch in terms of reach and attention. Great algorithm, exposing a lot of, small creators. If you're really good, you'll get attention there, So anyway, it's in some ways sad to see them go, but I also have kids who I don't want on phones all the time. So part of me is like, let's let that one go.
I always assumed TikTok was a much younger demographic.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And so from a business standpoint, unless you're selling to young people, it didn't seem to me the best place to hang out.
I'll say a year ago, maybe, but it's become so mainstream and entrenched. I would say even Gen Xers were starting to move to the platform. It was really gaining a lot of market share.
Okay. What are the biggest issues you see with the clients you serve through the CPA firm? You're doing taxes and can everyone stroke a check when their tax bill comes due?
No, they really do struggle with that for sure. We try to help them with that, to set some money aside, 20% of their earnings regularly in a separate account, hide it from yourself if you have to, make those estimated payments. So get that money already teed up and set aside for that. Mistakes or things they struggle with. I think just a few things. I sort of mentioned one earlier, was not accounting for their retirement. So as you make the leap into self-employment, it even took me as a CPA like a year or two before I even pulled the trigger on my first solo 401k or simple IRA. So I looked into those and said, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense, for me to be taking some of this business income and putting into something like that. Can have, especially as your income gets above 100, into the six figures, into that realm, then you can really defer a lot of taxes using a tool like that too. So solo 401k is one of the biggest tools for a small business owner to deploy, regardless of industry. But the creators oftentimes are attracted to it because they might employ their spouse to help them out with the business. And so then you get double the deduction using a tool like that.
Can you take a withdrawal out of a solo 401k and convert it to a Roth if you pay tax? Or is there a penalty? You may not know, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'm a little shaky on that actual rule. I believe you can. It's very flexible. You can do a lot with it. You can take loans from it. There's most likely a conversion ability. You can do them self-directed, so you can have different types of assets in there. It's a great tool.
Here's what I'm thinking, and I've never heard anyone write about this. I know a lot of people do the Roth conversion ladders. As a business owner, it's not unusual for income to go up and down and up and down.
Right.
You put money up into the 401k, you get a tax deduction. In a year when the business is losing money, right, you convert the crap out of all your 401k into a Roth and you'll never pay taxes again. and then if you put it into a Roth and it's self-directed, you can use it for
Yeah.
real estate, other types of things. You can even buy businesses inside of
Yeah.
these types of accounts. And I don't think anyone spends anywhere near enough time understanding that.
Right.
Instead, they go buy a truck. They make
Right.
somebody else rich instead of making themselves rich.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to find a way to meet with your CPA at the end of the year, not just April, not just February, March, April, but meet with them in September, October, November. Talk about those things. Because you're right. Life of an entrepreneur is up and down. And one year, one strategy could work. The next year, a very different one could work. And you could really, double down on some areas that will have a big impact for you. So whether you do it as a one-off, pay a CPA $1,000 to meet with them, to do a tax plan or whatever, to work through those things, or whether you have like sort of an ongoing relationship like we've set up through our program, then, just make sure you make that time to meet before the end of the year. So that's another mistake we oftentimes see, is them seeing a need for us only during tax season, right? And that's why all of our plans are full service, full year, because it's like there's not much of a point for us helping you just around April. We could do the tax return, but then we sort of lose you for a year, and we'll see you right back in the same space, next year. We really didn't add a lot of value to what you're doing. So we're kind of hoping just to get the ones who want to kind of roll with us,
And I don't think a lot of people understand that tax planning and tax prep are two different skills.
Right.
And to be honest, I think most CPA firms are more tax prep.
Yep.
They are not so much tax planning. And then even within tax planning, the code is so thick that you've got to find somebody who's an expert in business tax or small business tax
or real estate or whatever your deal is. Yep. And it's worth that. It's worth looking for that specialist, because they're out there now. And you don't have to just go down the street to find the local CPA to help you out, and just whatever he knows or she knows, that's what the help you're going to get. You can go online and you can find the specialist in your industry and someone specific to really help you through exactly what you're doing. So that's the cool thing about how the accounting industry is changing right now, is the specialization that's happening. But yeah, you're right. Most tax firms are so swamped with just the number of returns they're actually doing. They don't have time to sit and think about, well, how did this compare to what they did last year? And what's the income going to be so far this year? I mean, they're nowhere even near touching something like that. So if you can find someone who you can invest with a little more throughout the year, then it should pay you back easily.
And that's a big thing we tell our clients. Like September, October, it's time to have a tax meeting.
Yep.
Late December, any final things that need to get done, issues that are coming up, and how to move money around and do some different things in the retirement planning and the final tax planning. And if you're not doing that, then it's probably a struggle. Yeah. And the other thing is, even when you look at a tax return, depending on where you put things on a tax return, they have different values. And it's having enough discernment to know, hey, if I put this here, it's better than if I put it here. But as you said, during tax time, they're just pushing stuff through. And these days, there's a lot more automation. Yep. And so they're not even looking. They're just letting the automation do it, which I'm sure the automation's correct, but the automation's not, what would be the right word?
It's the difference between a Zoom meeting and an in-person conference, right? We need the real thing. We need a real human looking at it and paying attention to it. Yeah.
Correct. And you have to look and know. And then the other thing is to understand the outcomes. And for taxes, it is long-term planning. So you've got to think, if you want to sell your business, that's going to take a different tax planning strategy.
Sure.
If you're starting new partnerships, how you create the partnerships, how you do all of these things. And I am shocked at how little the conversations are in that space.
Yeah. There needs to be more. For us, most of our clients are just starting out with their business, so it's simple conversations. It's things like, you really need to separate your business and your personal expenses, and get a separate bank account set up, get a separate credit card attached to this business, get your proper insurances or licenses or whatever it is. Let's get going with a clean profit and loss statement each month, so we can actually look and see how your business is performing on its own. and then we can maybe make some decisions around that. I mean, most creators wouldn't really know how to look at a profit and loss statement and sort of make decisions around that. So coming up as an accountant, I sort of had that inflection. I knew to do that, but that was my, I guess, secret advantage. But most of them don't, and so just helping them walk through a profit and loss is huge for them,
I think where people get lost is the balance sheet, because I find very few people look at a balance sheet month to month and look for the changes to see where things actually changed, because a lot of cash disappears on the balance sheet. And that's why people go, it says I'm profitable. Where's my cash? Well, it all got lost on the balance sheet. And if you don't know how to look at that, then you're kind of stuck there in that space.
And the cool thing about what we're building is because we're isolating content creators as our customer, ideally in a certain point, we'll have enough of these and a case study to look at where we can sort of model out what their profit and loss statement should be. If they're doing that amount of revenue, this is typically what we're seeing other creators making off that amount of revenue, what their balance sheets look like, where they're potentially getting financing from, or where they're doing other deals. So that cross-pollination, sort of privately and independently, will be helpful to each of those businesses, I think, going forward with the knowledge we're trying to build.
That it is. Now, I will say the one thing I've always been hesitant about is industry concentration, only because when an industry gets hit, you get hit hard. So I always like to have a
be careful not to build my entire business on creators, is what you're saying.
Well, I think if you look within the creator space, is there a way to diversify so that if certain creators go down, other creators go up?
Yeah.
Or, if something changes, what does that do?
Sure. It's definitely a risk, and it shows how bullish I am on the industry, that I've got 2 conferences in the space and now a CPA firm that's dedicating most of its resources to that type of client. So I believe in them. I think they're the future of entertainment, news, media, everything. So I think it's just starting.
I think because you have such deep reach, you probably won't have as much of an issue, in the sense that if the industry does go down, you still have enough reach to be able to figure it out and work through it. Whereas somebody who's in a local area and doesn't have that type of reach would struggle.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage for me where I was already positioned. And I would not have bought the firm from Dad had I not thought I could made this move. Like it all had to sort of work this way so that, it wasn't just me buying these sort of separate silos and then, not getting any advantage by bringing them together. Same thing for the conferences. The second conference we bought, TravelCon, is just rinse and repeat of what we're doing at FinCon, just on a smaller level and with a different topic. So use the same team to produce the event, use the same apps, all of it kind of integrates together. So
it is amazing when you build systems and processes that are universal and you can drop and drag anything else into them. That's the way a business should run. Yeah. Unfortunately, most businesses seem to reinvent the wheel every day, and that is not the way to do it.
Well, I don't want to act like I have it all figured out. It's going to be more of a process to kind of get from where I'm at to the point to where it all really works together. But it's an exciting challenge, and I can see the future of it and see the vision of it. So it's fun to wake up every day and kind of take it on.
Cool. If people would like to learn more about you and check out your content, where should they go?
Sure. For the accounting services, it's at thecreatorcpa.com. And for my personal blog, if you want to check out some of my old writing and content there and old podcasts and things, it's at ptmoney.com. Our annual conference for FinCon will be coming up in the fall of 2025. That's in Portland, Oregon. And then TravelCon is in Tucson this March.
Cool. And I'm sure they can find all that stuff at all those different places. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocky, always good, man. I really appreciate you. You're doing great work and you're an inspiration.
Thank you. Tax planning is super important, but now is not the time for it. You don't do it during tax season. You do it way outside of tax season. I would also ensure that you have someone on your team who understands tax planning versus tax prep. There can be massive savings if done correctly. And I'm not talking about buying an SUV. That's spending money, not making money. Don't forget to plan for retirement and have that bucket so that no matter what your senior years are covered. I plan to keep on working, but I still have it. Also, create that big war chest. You never know what's going on and what's going to happen. Profit First is awesome for that. It helps you build up that massive profit account. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. That's why we focus on the bottom line in free cash going into your pocket.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your Chief Profitability Officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.